one of the all-time great coaches in any sport, says that his career almost never took him to where he won multiple championships. What did Nick Saban have to say?
So on the pivot, he dove into his. It's a podcast.
Okay,
sorry, it's a sports podcast. And he talked about his one regret, which he said was leaving LSU. And so this is an interesting thing he said, but this was with Ryan Clark, interestingly enough, the pivot. But he said that Jimmy Sexton was on a balcony when he was getting ready to leave LSU and make a decision about whether or not he wanted to go to Miami or stay at LSU. And he said, Jimmy Sexton said to him, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be Vince Lombardi or do you want to be Bear Bryant? Saban reportedly says that without hesitation, he said Bear Bryant. And he said Jimmy Sexton responded to him, what are you doing going to Miami again? That's the truth outside of Skip Bertman's office on the balcony, and I went anyway, he said. He said that basically it went against all of his instincts to leave LSU. And he said, another quote he said later, he said, I think sometimes you have to learn about yourself. You might think things when I left LSU. That was probably professionally the biggest mistake that I ever made. Not because we didn't have success in Miami, because I enjoyed coaching in Miami, but I found out in that experience, I like coaching in college better because you can develop players personally, academically, athletically, and all that a little more than in pro ball. Even though I love the status of coaching in pro football and the kind of guys you coach and you're coaching in the best league against the best players, I loved all that, then I can't go back to LSU.
Well, I think it's pretty incredible that he would share that. So he won one championship at LSU and 7 at Alabama. Is that right?
Yes. Six at Alabama.
7 total. If you had a bet that he wins double-digit national championships if he stays at LSU, would you take 10 or more or less than 10? I'm not even going to put the hook on it.
Man, 10's a lot. 10 is a lot, but I would almost go there, guys. I still maintain that we don't understand. NIL's changed things, but just how much of a fertile recruiting ground LSU was for a long time. I'm going to say less because here's why. And there's 2 reasons, Dave. I still think he gets like 6 or 7. When he was at Alabama.
You don't think he does any better than, you're taking away his time at Miami. I think he wins 10. So, but I'm including that he's not in Miami and he's coaching at LSU for those, 3 years?
2 years. 2
years. Well, that just gives me 2 years. But yeah, when you've got it rolling, he at least had to build it up. I remember he kicked a linebacker off the team because he was slinging cocaine in the workout facility parking lot. So he had to clean up Alabama. They weren't immediately ready to go. So there's at least probably 4 fertile years. Would you agree, at LSU, with the 2 at Miami and the 2 at Alabama rebuilding it? There's probably 4 years there where he's getting a team ready to play for a championship.
And you think he can get 3 titles in those 4 years?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, here's something that kind of works against him just a little bit.
And I'm going to say this really quick. I don't want to interrupt your thought. I also think he doesn't have to recruit as hard, and he just might even coach a little bit longer. I know he doesn't like the NIL, and everybody thinks that's just naturally it, but I just think he's probably a little burned out. He realized he likes making money, which he's very good at, every bit as much as he likes molding young men. Go ahead.
And also it was a fight with the NIL people at Alabama. I don't know if it would have been that way at LSU. Nick Saban had 2 advantages. I think the thing Nick Saban is missing here, and I think the thing we're missing, going to the NFL those 2 years did Nick Saban a lot of favors for 2 reasons. One, it actually built up his credibility in college, Dave, because let's not forget this. Everybody thinks he flamed out in the NFL. He went 9-7 his first year in Miami, and Miami wanted him to stay, by the way, after they had a losing record the next year. He pushed hard to sign Drew Brees. Miami wouldn't let him. And he looked like he looked like a genius, by the way, because Drew Brees goes to New Orleans and balls out, and he's forced with Dante Culpepper. That's why he left Miami.
I agree. I don't even think it was because he was proven right at the end. I think it was just because he didn't have the power. Because to me, if I'm a head football coach and the medical staff says this guy can't play, and that's what they told him about Drew Brees. Now, we all know in retrospect that wasn't the case, but it was a very serious elbow injury. And there was a question whether or not he was, because he never had a strong arm to begin with, and he threw that sidearm whip that puts a lot of stress on your elbow. That was a real concern. So that to me is a control freak, somebody that is essentially trying to trump the medical staff. They know more about joints than you do. Sorry.
But Dave, let's remember this. Nick Saban went 9-7 his first year at Miami, and then the next year won at Drew Brees, but on top of that, still kept Miami above water when they got wrecked by injuries. If anybody, people, younger viewers, go back and look. You know this, Dave. Don Shula, Miami, they wanted to keep Nick Saban. They didn't want to lose him. They thought he was building something really good there. And when Nick Saban went back to Alabama, his reputation as a coach was significantly better than it was before he left LSU. The Miami years actually helped him recruiting-wise because of his reputation on a national scale. He developed contacts in Florida, and I think people found him to be a more impressive. People were very impressed by the job he did in the NFL.
I'm not going to go with you there. I think a bigger factor was he did an incredible job of building recruiting ties in Louisiana. So when he got to Alabama, he was able to hit the ground running.
Well, and he built them in Florida too by being at Miami. He built recruiting ties in Florida during that time.
Well, I don't think he's going to high school saying if I ever go back.
Well, no, but you have there's camps and things like that coaches cross paths in. But here's the other thing, and here's the big thing. You've talked about this all the time. The offensive analyst, when he was ahead of the curve, the analyst that he has, like go onto the field with the close practices. Dave, he learned that in the NFL. He learned that coaching as a head coach in the NFL.
Okay, that's pretty good. Well, now wait. All NFL practices are open.
But no, it wasn't about the NFL practice. It was about the number of analysts that NFL teams have.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he realized if I had these analysts in college, I could do a much better job. That's when he decided. He thought of the closed practices and keep it separate. But he knew that the number of analysts would be valuable. That was not a thing he was familiar with because he had coached in the NFL in the 90s, but the analysts weren't a thing. The NFL was using analysts by 2005. Nick Saban learned that those 2 years in Miami about all the analysts at his disposal. That's when he decided when he went to Alabama, I'm going to do this. And he didn't do that at LSU. So that's why I kind of draw back to say, is he as good? Would you take the being at LSU and recruiting the state of Louisiana the way Nick Saban would have been able to without having to try that hard? Or would you take the knowledge of the analyst that he had from his 2 years that he got from his 2 years in Miami?
I would take the incredibly strong, which was I was told by a coach, like epically strong recruiting ties over all of those other factors. I'm not just dismissing your factors, Caleb, but to me, the 80% was he flew into Tuscaloosa and he had already made 100 recruiting phone calls before the wheels even touched the ground. And much of them were in Louisiana. Sorry.
Well, no, I believe that. And let's also not forget this. When Les Miles was hired at LSU in 2005 after Nick Saban, I don't know of anybody that walked into more talent as first-year head coach. Do you? From another school? I mean, there was talk of, it was like kind of a known thing, wasn't it? Like, look at what like Nick Saban, he only had, he had multiple 3-loss seasons at LSU because he was building it from nothing. But literally the year he left was the first year LSU was stocked with 4 top 5 recruiting classes. And I don't know of any coach that typically when a coach leaves a program, they leave him maybe in a little bit worse shape. There's no debate. Nick Saban left LSU in way better shape than when he found it.
They're in great shape at Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. Let's make that a poll question. Let's work that in real quick. Does Nick Saban win 10 or more championships if he stays at LSU as opposed to the Tuscaloosa trip via South Beach? Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED for 10% off. And also, if we can drop this in the chat, Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. That's Peak IV Hydration. NFL.com. So
I'm going to keep because 10 more people are going to side with me. I'll just say, does he win more championships than he did if he stays at LSU?
Well, that's an obvious yes.
You really think that's an obvious yes?
Yes.
Those analysts still think.
Listen, LSU was it was a much easier job. Just people didn't know it because they floundered around for so many years.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on that. And for those who don't know, that's why Brian Kelly bolted for LSU. I mean, people think, I'm glad you're saying it, Dave, because how often do the message board think I'm some like Louisiana homer? And I'm like, no, I just studied recruiting. Two things with LSU that make it an easy job, guys. NFL talent per capita, which you've talked about, but also there's no competition for those players. All those kids want to go to LSU, right? Every single one of them. Yeah. I mean, Georgia may have more talent, but those kids aren't fully loyal to Georgia.
Because Atlanta is a cosmopolitan area. A lot of people move in. Same way Nashville is going to be.
Yeah. And also Tennessee and Alabama have such proximity there. They can compete for those guys. There's no proximity to Louisiana.
Right. But I also think you're going to see the same thing happen in Nashville. I think as much as Tennessee would like to get every dude out of there, and I know you and I have debated their merit, but Tennessee would love to lock that down and get the guys they wanted. I don't think you're ever going to be able to do that. I really don't. I think there are always going to be guys that came from elsewhere that moved in to the Nashville area that end up going elsewhere. And the bigger it gets, doesn't mean the more prospects you're going to get. Maybe there's more prospects out there, but it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get more.
Let me ask you this, because you cover recruiting deeply, and I know you covered somewhat Louisiana recruiting. Did Katrina not make Louisiana a little more cosmopolitan with the people that moved back in? Or is it the same, just people that have the same deep roots in the state that they did before the hurricane hit? Because I know a lot of people left the state when it hit. And did they just all move back?
I don't know. There's an incredible Cajun place in downtown Chattanooga. I can't remember the name of it because of Katrina. They just got up and moved, and they stopped in Chattanooga. And it's right on the corner of Market, Maine, and it is phenomenal. Just a random shout out there. I think it's called Blue Moon or something like that. So I know a lot of people left there. I don't know. Did they go back?
Well, my thing is, did Louisiana repopulated after that? But I'm like, did it repopulate from people coming back, or did it repopulate in the cosmopolitan way? Because what you're saying, it sounds like it repopulated from the people who went back, because it's still not that cosmopolitan down there.